It's official. Former Vice President Mike Pence is in the race to be president. Pence made his announcement in Iowa, and I want to play a clip of it for you.
Now, most Americans know me from my last assignment in the White House. Together, in 3 short years, we cut taxes, we destroyed ISIS, we stood with our allies and stood up to our enemies as never before. We achieved energy independence. It was our administration that appointed 3 of the justices that sent Roe versus Wade to the ash heap of history.
Did you hear that, though? He kept saying we. He says it over and over again. The we he keeps talking about is the man who was the president, Donald Trump. Now, normally a vice president would run for president after the president they served was out of office or not running again. But as you know, Trump is running again. This, by the way, is a very unique situation. Vice presidents running against the president they served. This is only the 3rd time in history it's ever happened. The first time was 1800 when Thomas Jefferson ran against John Adams when the vice president was the runner-up in the presidential elections. The second time, 1940, when Vice President John Nance ran against FDR. So, I mean, we're seeing a little bit of history unfold here. Well, for 4 years, though, as you recall, Pence was the loyal vice president. He was supporting and advancing the America First agenda put forward by President Trump. And over again in the announcement, you just heard him in that say some of those big achievements: tax cuts, becoming energy independent, securing the border, appointing pro-life judges. I mean, you heard the list of accomplishments and the word we throughout it. Pence makes it very clear that he was proud to stand by President Trump for those 4 years. But much later in that announcement, he starts discussing why he's breaking from Trump and sees the need to run against him. Here's the problem, though. I don't think that there's a big enough lane for the guy who was number 2 to claim to be number 1 if number 1 is still running, right? You are trying to convince and remind voters of all the amazing accomplishments and achievements that occurred while Trump was president and you were vice president. But then you try to pivot at the end of that pitch and say, well, I think you should change horses. I mean, think about it in a different way. Imagine you went out to dinner. You're at a restaurant. You have this really great meal. You love the meal. And the assistant to the chef who cooks it comes out and says, hey, I know you loved your experience. I know you loved the meal, but I'm opening a new restaurant. I think you should come to that instead of going back to the same chef that you knew cooked a good meal, right? If the issue that Pence lists are the issues that voters care about, and I think they are, then I don't see a big enough lane or a reason why people would switch horses. Look, Pence, as I've said before, has gone all in Iowa. He has to win or place a close second to have any chance of going on. And right now, there's at least 8 other candidates making the case that they're the better alternative to Trump. Pence brought it up a few times, his actions on January 6th, talking about his oath and his concern for the Constitution. Now, let's face it, if that were an issue for most voters, Trump wouldn't be getting over 50% of the vote. It just wouldn't happen. Clearly, that's not a big issue for a lot of primary voters. I mean, for 2 years, Pence has largely remained loyal to Trump and occasionally brings up his differences. First, when he was selling a book, and now that he wants the job of his former boss. I think voters are going to largely see through this, right? Pence's announcement sounded more like somebody asking the artificial intelligence program ChatGPT to write a Mike Pence speech. It was full of traditional conservative buzzwords and phrases. And so while it's still early in the process, I just don't see a path for Mike Pence beyond Iowa. Well, if you enjoyed this video, click the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell to make sure that you never miss another video.